And we are live. Hello, one and all, and welcome to my live review for the network special WWE Roadblock. Tonight's network special aired live from Toronto, Canada, and I'm going to give you my overall thoughts and opinion on the matches that took place on tonight's show. Overall, I enjoyed this show from start to finish. I didn't really think there was one meh match, but I thought pretty much a majority of the matches on this card delivered. And for a show that I really wasn't planning on watching, going into, it was definitely a pleasant surprise. And I would have to say it was definitely much better than Fastlane. I don't think it was as good as the Royal Rumble is still the pay-per-view of the year for WWE, in my opinion. But with NXT TakeOver Dallas coming up and WrestleMania 32, those shows will hopefully be the premier shows of the year, as they should be. But for tonight's show, for really not having too much build going into it, except for the NXT Tag Titles match and Triple H versus Dean Ambrose, I thought those two matches were the ones that had the most build. I thought this was a show that mostly delivered. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at what took place on tonight's show. So we kick things off with the New Day. We have Kofi Kingston and Big E representing New Day defending their tag team championships against League of Nations members Sheamus and Wade Barrett. Before the match, New Day, they cut a funny promo. They were talking about Bootio cereal. They unveiled the Bootio cereal box and it had all the pictures of the New Day members on it. I found it funny. I was just laughing. I love when New Day just, goes off the cuff and says really whatever they want to. They're really funny. They're really entertaining. Gets the crowd going, and New Day does rock. So, fun little promo from New Day before the match. The match itself, I thought it was a solid opening tag match. I figured this was going to be the type of match that these two teams would have, and I'm glad that this match took place on this show rather than WrestleMania 32, because I feel like there's so much more that can be done with the WWE Tag Team division heading into the Showcase of the Immortals. But we'll get into that later on down the month. But with this match, like I said, I thought both teams went out there. They worked really well with one another. They put on a solid match. And like I said, Kofi hit some nice spots in there going, up top on the top rope, hitting, I think, a flying crossbody. It was either that or an elbow Sheamus, so that was a nice spot. But New Day was eventually able to pick up the win. It came after Kofi hit a tornado DDT, off the steel ring steps onto Sheamus, and then Big E had Wade Barrett isolated, and he hit the big ending for the victory. So solid opening tag match. Not much more I can say about it, but New Day rocks. New Day rocks. So the show kicked off at a good pace, and it certainly did continue heading into the next match. But before that next match, we had a backstage promo with the mad scientist of ECW, Paul Heyman. And Heyman pretty much says that his client, he's out for revenge on what happened at the Royal Rumble, how the Wyatt family attacked Brock Lesnar, and that Brock Lesnar would take his revenge on Bray Wyatt. And that revenge would take place tonight in Toronto, and Toronto will now become Suplex City. And Heyman said Lesnar will victimize and conquer Bray Wyatt. So really strong, good promo from Paul Heyman. Then we had an in-ring promo from Chris Jericho. This was much better than the match that he would have with Jack Swagger. Don't really want to say too much about that. Really want to talk about this promo that Jericho cut. I am loving this heel. I'm so glad Chris Jericho turned heel on AJ Styles. Cannot wait for their eventual match at WrestleMania. Hopefully they add a stipulation of that. 2 out of 3 falls. Falls count anywhere. But getting back to this promo, I thought it was really on spot. Jericho, he pretty much talked up how, he's disgusted, he's ashamed of being from Canada, and that he said it's typical for Canadians to latch on to somebody like AJ Styles. And this was a funny line. He said, moving out of Canada was the greatest decision he ever made in his life. And he also called Toronto the anus of Canada. So he was able to get the crowd to chant asshole at him. So Jericho is so good at what he does that he just is able to get that heel heat. And it was tremendous to see. I was digging the promo. And then he had a match against Jack Swagger. It was the weakest match on the show. Not too much to say about this match. I was really more impressed with the promo before the match. Jericho, as you can guess, was able to pick up the victory after he made Swagger tap out in the walls of Jericho. So definitely the lowest point of this show. But things definitely picked right back up after this because it was NXT time. The NXT Tag Team Championships, were on the line. Dash and Dawson were defending their titles against How You Doing, SAWFT, Big Cass, and Enzo Amore. This was a very, very good match. It definitely a candidate for match of the night, in my opinion. If it wasn't this, it was definitely Dean Ambrose and Triple H. These guys went out there, and like I said, I've seen them wrestle here in Pittsburgh. They had a great match at the London show. This is right up there. It's hard to rank all their matches, but this was definitely another great match, between these two teams. Dash and Dawson early on were able to maintain and isolate control of Enzo. And eventually, they would wear down and just really take it to Enzo. They would beat the holy hell out of him. And eventually this would lead to Enzo having to make the tag to Big Cass, going for that hot tag. Eventually Enzo was able to get the tag as he sent Dawson, who was charging at Enzo, went shoulder first into the post. So Enzo made the tag to Big Cass. Cass starts clearing house. So, starts picking up the pace. Cass hits the East River crossing, and it looks like Cass is going to set Enzo up for Air Enzo, the rocket launcher, but Dawson comes back, knocks Enzo off the top rope, and the Revival hit the Shatter Machine to Cassady. And then with Enzo, Cassady's laid outside. Enzo hits a flying DDT to Wilder. Enzo gets him for a 2 count. Thought it was over right then and there. But then Enzo gets a boot to Dawson. Dawson makes the unseen tag to Wilder, and the Revival hits Shattered Machine to pick up the victory. But a really good pace to this match. I really liked how Dash and Dawson chose to isolate Enzo. Makes sense. You work on the smaller of the two guys. You don't want to go after Big Cass, so you keep him at bay in this match. But like I said, they went out there and they had a tremendous tag team match, and definitely, if not match of the night, it was definitely second running. This was a very good tag team match and shows why NXT is the future of WWE. So I was really hoping for Enzo and Big Cass to pick up the victory. However, I really didn't see that happening. I see them keeping the tag titles on Dash and Dawson to eventually build to their tag team championship match at the upcoming NXT TakeOver Dallas show, where I think they will drop the belts there. Then we had a backstage segment between Charlotte and Natalya. Natalya is pretty much talking about how it's great to be back home in Toronto, and how she is very excited for her match against Charlotte. She's going to dedicate this match to her uncle, Bret the Hitman Hart. Charlotte comes over and she pretty much says, beating you, Natalya, is going to be a piece of cake. She's talking trash to Natalya. And Natalya, is like, well, Charlotte, if you're so, confident, why don't you put the Divas Championship on the line? And then Natalya says the line that really gets on Charlotte's nerves. She said the Flairs are cowards. So Natalya baits Charlotte into making this match for the Divas Championship. And Natalya and Charlotte go out there and they have a damn good match. Props to those two. Probably my third favorite match of the night, right there behind the tag team titles for the NXT tag team titles. This was a damn good match. They just went out there and they gave them enough time, and it goes to show you when you have two good workers in there, like a Natalya, like a Charlotte. I was really pulling for Natty. I thought maybe, just maybe, they would have Natalya win that Divas Championship in Toronto. And maybe they would change things up, maybe only for a day. Maybe, and then she would lose it the next day on Raw. That wasn't the case. Charlotte would retain her title. But when Natalya locked in that sharpshooter, it looked like Charlotte might. She just might tap out. However, she was able to get to the ropes. And Ric Flair eventually hopped onto the apron, caused the distraction. Natalya makes the mistake of going after Flair. And Charlotte rolls Natty up using her feet on the ropes to the advantage. So Charlotte using the dirty heel tactics, just like her dad, to retain her Divas Championship. And what I will say once again is a very, very good match, because I know Charlotte and Natalya have history together from NXT. They had a tremendous match down there, and this was a tremendous match. So it's nice to see, women's wrestling at its finest on the main roster. So once again, props to both of them. Then after this match, we had what was really an odd match. It was originally supposed to be Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt, but that's not what we got. We got Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper. It really wasn't that long of a match. Bray Wyatt wasn't even in this match. It was rather odd. It was Harper and Lesnar. Harper was able to get some offense early on Lesnar. I think he had a boot to his face. And eventually, like I said, it was tough because I don't know about you guys, but my network stream was kind of lagging tonight. It was sputtering here and there. So I don't know what was going on. So I missed parts of this match. But eventually, Lesnar would dominate Harper. He would start hitting those suplexes. I believe somebody said he hit seven suplexes on Luke Harper. Like I said, Bray Wyatt never went in the ring. And it was with an F5 that Brock picked up the victory. So disappointed with this. I was really hoping we get Bray Wyatt versus Brock Lesnar. However, since they did this, smart money tells me we will be getting this feud down the road, and it is something that hopefully I can look forward to if they build Bray Wyatt back up and the whole Wyatt family to a credible level. Because right now they really, I don't know what they're doing with the Wyatt family. They need some type of direction for them. And that's my only reason to think why they made this a 2-on-1 match. So we'll see where they go with that. But yeah, definitely a disappointing part of the show. I was really hoping to get that one-on-one physical confrontation when they announced Bray Wyatt versus Brock Lesnar. Even though I knew Bray was going to lose, I was hoping we were going to get a hell of a match out of it. So don't know what was up with that. Then we had our sixth match of the evening, Sami Zayn versus Stardust. Solid match, I'd have to say. Crowd really wasn't into it as much as I thought they would be. I thought this was a good match. Great once again to see Sami Zayn finally be on the main roster full-time going forward. It's going to be great to see. Sami's definitely somebody that I can get behind as that underdog character that never gives up. And I think the crowd, the masses will gravitate towards him, and he will be somebody that can be, with the right booking, please, Vince, don't mess this up, as a future WWE heavyweight champion. But back to this match. Solid match between him and Cody. Nothing more I can say there. Sami took a lot of punishment from this match. Had a blue thunder bomb in there. Eventually, he was able to pick up the victory after Stardust went for the crossroads, but Zayn was able to counter out of it. Stardust hit a disaster kick for Sami, kicked out after 2. Then Sami hit an exploder suplex to Stardust, and then he finally went with the haluva kick to pick up the 3 count over Stardust. So your winner, Sami Zayn. So up to this point, I'm really excited, and thought the show was going really well. And then we had a really good main event with an ending that I pretty much saw coming a mile away. It was Dean Ambrose versus The Game, the 14-time heavyweight champion, the cerebral assassin, Triple H, defending his title. Props to these guys. They went out there. They had one hell of a match. Like I said, I was really pulling for Dean, really wanted to see him win that WWE championship, and he came so freaking close in this match. So close. Him and Triple H went out there. They told a great story, good selling, really physical, rough match. It felt like an old school match in a way. Really kind of a slower pace, and I like that. I like that a lot. A lot of brawling between these two. There was a spot in the match, I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about, where Dean hit Dirty Deeds on Triple H, and the ref went 1, 2, 3. I'm like, holy shit, Dean just won the title, right? Right? Everybody's going fucking crazy. But no, you know with Dean Ambrose, he always comes this freaking close before they yank the rug right out from under him. Apparently the ref said, I'm not going to allow that. His foot was under the rope when he went for the pin. I'm like, really? Really? And the crowd was chanting, bullshit, bullshit. They were really, really pissed. And I was too. I'm like, Dean came that freaking close to winning the title. And, like I said, just a lot of good stuff in this match. There was a part of the match where Triple H And they kept referencing the table because, they were talking about that in the build-up to this match. Somebody's going to go through a table. Triple H beat the crap out of Dean Ambrose on a table. Ambrose said he's going to put Triple H through a table. So Ambrose was able to eventually, towards the end of the match, put Triple H on the table, and he tried to do a running elbow onto Triple H, onto the table. But Triple H moved out of the way. Dean got put through it. Looked like it hurt himself really bad. And then, Triple H made his way back into the ring. Dean Ambrose tried to roll back into the ring. And when he did, what awaited him? A pedigree. And the game hits that pedigree and retains, his WWE heavyweight title. So now it is official. It's going to be Roman Reigns versus Triple H for the title. Yay. You need to get me hyped for that match because right now out of all the matches announced for Mania, Lesnar, Ambrose, Shane Taker, the triple threat for the Divas title, I could care less about Triple H versus Roman Reigns. Unless they somehow say that Dean pinned the champion and he should be added to the match, I'm not going to care about that match. And here's the other thing. I will be at Raw this Monday night, and you're telling me that Roman Reigns will not be there? I don't think that's right. I think he should be there to build up for the title match. You're only going to have him there for the last 2 weeks. So I have an issue with that. I really don't think that's right. I think that's stupid. Are you trying to protect him from the crowd booing him? Really, if you have to go to that great lengths, what does that say? That's a whole nother issue for a whole nother video. But back to the show. Really good match. Really great match between Dean Ambrose and Triple H. Just the type of match that I thought these two would have if it was just a straight-up singles match. Like I said, slightly disappointed that Dean did not win the title. However, going into this special, I really didn't feel that Dean would win the title. So I kept my expectations low, and that way I was not disappointed. So, overall, I thought this was a good show. I'm going to give this show a B+. That's my grade for WWE Roadblock 2016. So, those are my thoughts and opinions on Roadblock tonight. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments section. What did you like? What didn't you like? And feel free to get that discussion going. Always appreciate it. So, thank you all for watching this video. Please click that like and subscribe button for more video content coming to this channel. And, of course, I will be back live for my Raw review, which I will be live at Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Console Energy Center, Monday night. We'll see where the road to WrestleMania is headed. With that, I am out. Peace.